Your imagination is supposed to be a preview of your coming attractions. But most people have turned it into a horror movie of everything that could go wrong. Every single breakthrough in human history started as an invisible image in someone's mind before it became a visible reality in the world. Every building, every business, every invention, every innovation first existed in human imagination before it existed anywhere else. But instead of using this incredible creative power to build their dreams, most people use it to rehearse their nightmares. They spend more time visualizing their fears than their future, more energy imagining problems than possibilities, more focus on worst-case scenarios than best-case outcomes. They've become movie directors of disaster instead of architects of achievement. They create detailed mental movies of everything that could go wrong in their relationships, their finances, their health, and their future. Then act surprised when their imagination becomes their reality. Your mind cannot tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and an actual experience, which means you're either programming yourself for success or programming yourself for failure with every mental picture you create. Most people are accidentally programming themselves for the exact opposite of what they want. Your greatest enemy lives between your ears and fights you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. This enemy never takes a vacation, never calls in sick, and never gives up. This enemy has destroyed more dreams than poverty ever could, defeated more champions than any physical opponent ever has, and stolen more destinies than all the thieves in human history combined. This enemy is not outside of you, it is inside of you. This enemy is your own untrained, undisciplined, unguarded mind right now, while I'm speaking to you. There's a war raging inside your head. It's the most important war you'll ever fight. And it's the one war that will determine whether you live or merely exist, whether you thrive or just survive, whether you become everything you were created to be or settle for a fraction of your potential. Most people don't even know this war is happening. They think their thoughts just show up randomly, like uninvited guests at a party. They believe their mental state is determined by their circumstances. Their feelings are controlled by their environment, and their future is dictated by their past. But let me tell you something, that will change everything if you really understand it. Your mind is not a passenger in your life. It's the driver. Your thoughts are not just commentary about your reality. They are the construction crew building your reality. Every single thing that exists in your external world started as an idea in someone's internal world. Every building, every business, every breakthrough, every invention, every innovation began as a thought in a human mind. The battlefield of your mind is where your destiny is determined. It's where your future is forged. It's where your potential is either released or imprisoned. Most people lose the war in their mind because they don't understand that they're in a war. They think negative thoughts are just part of life. Limiting beliefs are just being realistic. And mental defeat is just normal human experience. Let me tell you about Maria Rodriguez. 5 years ago, Maria was a single mother working double shifts at a factory, living paycheck to paycheck, and believing that struggle was her permanent address. Every morning, Maria would wake up and her mind would immediately begin its daily assault. You can't afford this. You don't have enough education. You're not smart enough. You're not connected enough. You're stuck and there's no way out. Maria had accepted these thoughts as truth instead of recognizing them as the enemy's propaganda. She had confused the voice of limitation with the voice of reality. For 32 years, Maria had been losing the battle in her mind without even knowing she was fighting. But something happened that changed everything. Maria's 8-year-old daughter came home from school one day and said, "Mama, why do we always worry about money? Why can't we have nice things like other families?" That innocent question hit Maria like lightning. She realized she wasn't just fighting for her own future, she was programming her daughter's future. She was downloading limitation thinking into the next generation. That night, Maria made a decision that would transform not just her life, but her daughter's life and her daughter's children's lives. She decided to win the war in her mind. She decided to stop being a victim of her thoughts and start being the victor over her thoughts. She decided to stop letting her mind think whatever it wanted to think and start training her mind to think what she needed it to think. Maria began studying successful people, and she made a shocking discovery. Successful people weren't necessarily smarter than her, more talented than her, or more educated than her. They had simply learned how to control their thoughts instead of being controlled by their thoughts. They had learned how to direct their mental energy toward solutions instead of problems, toward possibilities instead of limitations, toward what they wanted to create instead of what they wanted to escape. The difference between victims and victors is not circumstances, it's mental programming. Victims think about what's wrong. Victors think about what's possible. Victors focus on their problems. Victors focus on their potential. Victims are controlled by their past. Victors are creating their future. Victims ask, why me today? Maria owns 3 successful businesses, employs 47 people, and has created a life that would have been impossible to imagine when she was trapped in limitation thinking. But the most important transformation wasn't in her bank account. It was in her mind. Maria learned that thoughts become things, beliefs become behaviors, and mental patterns become life patterns. Your mind is like a garden. Whatever you plant in it will grow. If you plant seeds of doubt, you'll harvest a crop of defeat. If you plant seeds of fear, you'll harvest a crop of failure. If you plant seeds of limitation, you'll harvest a crop of lack. But if you plant seeds of possibility, you'll harvest a crop of prosperity. If you plant seeds of faith, you'll harvest a crop of victory. If you plant seeds of vision, you'll harvest a crop of achievement. Most people are walking around with mental gardens full of weeds, wondering why their life doesn't produce the fruit they want. They've allowed every negative thought, every limiting belief, every discouraging word to take root in their mind. They've given more attention to their problems than their potential, more energy to their fears than their faith, more time to their limitations than their possibilities. The war in your mind is not about positive thinking versus negative thinking. It's about trained thinking versus untrained thinking. It's about disciplined thinking versus undisciplined thinking. It's about purposeful thinking versus random thinking. Your mind was created to be your servant, not your master. It was designed to be your tool, not your tyrant. But if you don't train your mind will, if you don't discipline your thoughts. Your thoughts will discipline your life. From the moment you were born, society began programming you for mediocrity. Before you could even speak, you were being downloaded with limitations, infected with impossibility thinking, and trained to accept average as acceptable. Your parents, with all their good intentions, passed down their fears along with their love. Your teachers, trying to be helpful, taught you to color inside the lines instead of creating new lines. Your community, wanting to protect you, warned you about all the things that couldn't be done instead of showing you what could be accomplished. By the time you reached adulthood, your mind had been programmed with thousands of limiting beliefs that you never chose, never questioned, and never challenged. You accepted these mental downloads as your own thoughts when they were actually someone else's fears installed in your head. You believed these inherited limitations were reality when they were just recycled impossibility thinking passed down from people who had settled for less than their potential. This is why most people think the same thoughts today that they thought yesterday, make the same decisions today that they made last week, and get the same results this year that they got last year. They're not thinking original thoughts. They're replaying downloaded programming. They're not making conscious choices. They're following unconscious patterns. They're not creating their future. They're repeating their past. Let me tell you about Robert Williams. 20 years ago, Robert was working as a janitor in an office building, earning minimum wage, and believing that his circumstances defined his possibilities. Every day, Robert would clean the offices of successful business people. And every day his mind would tell him the same story. You're just a janitor. You don't have what it takes to be like them. You don't have their education, their connections, their advantages. Stay in your lane, accept your place. Robert had inherited these thoughts from his father, who had inherited them from his father, who had inherited them from his father. 3 generations of limitation thinking had been passed down like a family curse. Robert was living someone else's definition of what was possible for his life. One evening, while cleaning the office of a successful entrepreneur, Robert noticed something that changed everything. He saw books about business, success, and wealth creation scattered across the desk. Robert realized that these successful people weren't born with special knowledge. They had learned it. They weren't genetically programmed for success. That night, Robert made a decision that would break the generational pattern of limitation in his family. He decided to stop accepting downloaded thoughts and start creating original thoughts. He decided to stop living someone else's definition of his potential and start discovering his own possibilities. Robert began reading every book he could find about business and success. He started listening to educational programs instead of entertainment programs. He began studying successful people instead of just cleaning their offices. But most importantly, Robert began questioning every limiting belief that had been installed in his mind since childhood. When his mind told him, "You're not smart enough to start a business," Robert questioned that thought. When his mind said, "You don't have enough money to invest," Robert challenged that belief. When his mind whispered, "People like you don't become entrepreneurs," Robert rejected that programming entirely. Robert learned that there's a massive difference between downloaded thoughts and original thinking. Downloaded thoughts are limitations that other people installed in your mind. Original thinking is possibilities that you create in your mind. Downloaded thoughts are based on other people's fears. Original thinking is based on your own faith. Downloaded thoughts keep you trapped in your past. Original thinking propels you toward your future within 5 years. Robert had built a commercial cleaning company that employed 30 people and generated over $2 million in annual revenue. But the real transformation wasn't in his business, it was in his thinking. Robert had broken free from inherited limitations and created original possibilities. Your zip code doesn't determine your income potential. Your background doesn't determine your breakthrough potential. Your family history doesn't determine your future destiny. But your mental programming will determine everything if you don't take control of it. Most people are living their parents' dreams or their parents' nightmares instead of their own vision. They're making decisions based on their family's fears instead of their own faith. They're accepting their community's limitations instead of creating their own possibilities. Mental renovation is just as important as home renovation. You wouldn't live in a house with broken windows, leaking pipes, and faulty wiring. But most people are living in minds with broken beliefs, leaking confidence, and faulty thinking patterns. They wonder why their life doesn't work properly when their mental foundation is cracked and their thought patterns are damaged. The process of mental renovation begins when you stop accepting every thought that enters your mind and start selecting only the thoughts that serve your vision. It continues when you stop believing everything you think and start thinking everything you believe. It's completed when you stop being a victim of your programming and start being the programmer of your mind. The words you speak are not just sounds coming out of your mouth. They are seeds being planted in the soil of your future. Every word you utter is either building your tomorrow or destroying it. Your language is not just communication, it's creation. You are literally speaking your world into existence with every sentence, every phrase, every declaration that comes from your lips. Most people use their words to describe their problems instead of decreeing their solutions. They speak their fears into reality instead of speaking their faith into manifestation. They give more vocabulary to their limitations than to their possibilities. They become experts at articulating what's wrong with their life instead of declaring what's right with their potential. There's a fundamental difference between speaking your problems and speaking your solutions. When you speak your problems, you give them power, attention, and energy to grow. When you speak your solutions, you give them power, attention, and energy to manifest. Your words are not neutral. They are either working for you or against you, building you up or constructing your breakdown, creating your breakthrough or constructing your break. Let me tell you about Jennifer Thompson. 3 years ago, Jennifer was a school teacher earning $35,000 a year, struggling to pay her bills and feeling trapped in financial limitation. But Jennifer's real problem wasn't her salary. It was her vocabulary. Every conversation Jennifer had was filled with lack language, limitation declarations, and poverty proclamations. Jennifer would say things like, "I can't afford that. Money is so tight. I'm always broke. I'll never get ahead. And rich people are just lucky." Jennifer didn't realize that every time she spoke these words, she was instructing her subconscious mind to create more experiences that matched her declarations. She was unknowingly programming herself for financial struggle through her daily vocabulary. But something shifted when Jennifer attended a personal development seminar and learned about the creative power of words. She discovered that successful people don't just think differently, they speak differently. They use possibility language instead of limitation language. They speak about what they're creating instead of what they're experiencing. They declare their destination instead of describing their current location. Jennifer made a radical decision. She completely changed her vocabulary. Instead of saying, "I can't afford that," she started saying, "How can I afford that?" Instead of declaring money is tight, she began stating, "Money flows to me easily." Instead of proclaiming, "I'm always broke," she started affirming, "I'm building wealth every day." First, Jennifer's new vocabulary felt strange and uncomfortable. Her old programming resisted the new language. But Jennifer understood that comfort zones are limitation zones. And if she wanted to change her life, she had to change her language first. The transformation was remarkable. Within 6 months, Jennifer had started a tutoring business that generated an additional $15,000 within 1 year. She had created online courses that brought in $40,000 within 2 years. Jennifer had left teaching entirely and was earning over $100,000 annually through her educational business empire. What changed wasn't Jennifer's circumstances, it was her vocabulary. What shifted wasn't her opportunities, it was her language. What transformed wasn't her potential, it was her proclamations. Your internal dialogue is either your greatest ally or your worst enemy. Most people have an internal conversation that sounds like a broken record of negativity, limitation, and defeat. They wake up every morning and their mind immediately begins broadcasting the same old program of impossibility thinking, but you can change the station. You can reprogram your internal dialogue. You can transform your mental conversation from enemy to ally. Instead of waking up and thinking about everything that's wrong, you can wake up and declare everything that's possible. Instead of focusing on what you lack, you can focus on what you're creating. Instead of speaking your problems into prominence, you can speak your solutions into manifestation. What you say today becomes what you see tomorrow. Your current vocabulary is creating your future reality. Change your words and you'll change your world. Your imagination is not just a place where you escape reality. It's the workshop where you create reality. Every single thing that exists in your physical world first existed in someone's mental world. The building you're sitting in, the technology you're using, the business you work for, the innovations that make your life better, all began as invisible images in human imagination before they became visible realities in human experience. But most people use their imagination against themselves instead of for themselves. They create detailed mental movies of everything that could go wrong instead of everything that could go right. They spend more time visualizing their fears than their future, more energy imagining their problems than their possibilities, more focus on worst case scenarios than best case outcomes. This is backwards thinking that produces backwards results. Your imagination was designed to be a preview of your coming attractions, not a horror movie of your potential disasters. It was created to be a construction site for your dreams, not a graveyard for your hopes. It was meant to be your mental laboratory, where you experiment with possibilities, not your mental prison where you rehearse limitations. Clear vision defeats cloudy circumstances every single time. When your vision is crystal clear, your circumstances become irrelevant. When your mental picture is vivid and detailed, your current reality becomes temporary and changeable. When you can see your destination clearly in your mind, your starting point becomes just that, a starting point, not a permanent address. There's a profound difference between dreamers and achievers. And it's not what most people think. Dreamers have vague hopes about someday, maybe, possibly having a better life. Achievers have detailed blueprints of exactly what they're building and precisely how they're going to build it. Dreamers think about their vision occasionally when they feel like it. Achievers rehearse their vision daily until it becomes more real than their current reality. Most people's vision is like a blurry photograph that changes depending on their mood, their circumstances, or other people's opinions. But successful people's vision is like a high-definition movie that plays consistently in their mind regardless of what's happening around them. They've made their vision so clear, so detailed, so compelling that it pulls them forward like a magnet pulls metal. Your imagination is your preview of coming attractions, but only if you use it intentionally and consistently. Most people let their imagination run wild with worry instead of directing it purposefully toward their goals. They become movie directors of disaster instead of architects of achievement. When you consistently visualize your desired future, something powerful happens in your brain. Your subconscious mind cannot tell the difference between a vividly imagined experience and an actual experience. When you repeatedly see yourself succeeding in your mind, your brain begins to accept that success as reality and starts looking for ways to make it happen in your physical world. This is why Olympic athletes spend hours every day mentally rehearsing their performance. They don't just practice with their bodies, they practice with their minds. They see themselves executing perfect routines, winning their events, and standing on the podium with gold medals around their necks. They understand that mental rehearsal is just as important as physical rehearsal. But you don't have to be an Olympic athlete to use this principle. You can mentally rehearse your business success, your financial breakthrough, your relationship goals, your health transformation, or any other area where you want to see improvement. The key is consistency and detail. Don't just think about having more money. See yourself making specific financial decisions that create wealth. Don't just hope for a better relationship. Visualize yourself being the kind of person who attracts and maintains healthy relationships. Don't just wish for business success. Mentally rehearse yourself solving problems, serving customers, and building your empire. Your imagination is magnetic. Whatever you consistently focus on, you attract. Whatever you repeatedly visualize, you materialize. Whatever you continually see in your mind, you eventually see in your life. This is not mystical thinking. This is mental law. Make the invisible visible through focused imagination and watch as your mental movies become your physical reality. Mental warfare never ends, which means mental training can never end either. The battle for your mind is not a one-time fight that you win and then forget about. It's a daily discipline, a moment-by-moment choice, a lifetime commitment to guarding your thoughts like a security guard protects a bank vault. Most people think they can transform their thinking with a weekend seminar or a motivational speech, but real mental transformation requires daily maintenance and consistent mental hygiene. Every single morning when you wake up, your mind will try to default back to its old programming. It will attempt to replay yesterday's limitations, rehearse last week's problems, and remind you of last year's failures. Your untrained mind is like a radio that automatically tunes to the negativity station unless you consciously change the frequency. This is why winning the mind war requires establishing daily victory rituals that reprogram your mental software before the day begins. Your mind is like a muscle that grows stronger with the right exercise and weaker with neglect. Just as you wouldn't expect to build physical strength by working out once a month, you can't build mental strength by thinking correctly once in a while. Mental muscle is built through repeated right choices, consistent right thoughts, and daily right declarations. The compound effect of consistent right thinking is absolutely extraordinary. Small daily deposits of positive thoughts create massive accounts of mental wealth over time. When you choose faith over fear for 100 days in a row, you don't just have 100 days of better thinking. You develop a faith mindset that becomes automatic. When you speak possibility instead of limitation for 6 months straight, you don't just change your vocabulary, you rewire your entire belief system. But here's what most people don't understand about mental discipline. You have to guard your mental gates like a security system protects a mansion. You can't just let any thought, any influence, any conversation walk freely into your mind and set up residence. You have to become selective about what you allow into your mental space and aggressive about what you keep out. Your mental gates include your eyes, your ears, your conversations, and your associations. What you watch, what you listen to, who you talk to, and who you spend time with are all programming your subconscious mind 24 hours a day. Most people are unconscious about these mental gates. They watch anything, listen to anything, talk about anything, and associate with anyone, then wonder why their thinking is confused and their results are chaotic. The 1% guard their mental gates like their life depends on it, because they understand that their life does depend on it. They are intentional about what they watch, purposeful about what they listen to, strategic about who they talk to, and selective about who they spend time with. They understand that mental contamination is just as dangerous as physical contamination. Let me tell you about David Martinez, who 3 years ago was drowning in debt, depression, and defeat. David had tried everything to change his life. He had read books, attended seminars, and made countless resolutions, but nothing seemed to stick. David would get motivated for a few days or weeks, then slowly drift back to his old patterns of thinking and living. The breakthrough came when David realized that transformation isn't about motivation, it's about daily discipline. David stopped looking for the one big change that would fix everything and started focusing on small daily choices that would build everything. He established what he called his morning mental workout routine every single morning. Before David checked his phone, before he talked to anyone, before he did anything else. He spent 30 minutes programming his mind for success. He would read something inspiring for 10 minutes, write down his goals and visualize his future for 10 minutes, and speak positive declarations over his life for 10 minutes. David called this his daily mental maintenance at first. David's old programming resisted this new routine. His mind would tell him he was too busy, too tired, or that this stuff didn't really work. But David had made a commitment to mental discipline that was stronger than his momentary feelings. He understood that feelings are temporary, but habits are permanent within 90 days. David noticed that his automatic thoughts were becoming more positive. His default responses to challenges were becoming more solution-focused. His natural reactions to setbacks were becoming more resilient. David wasn't just thinking better occasionally. He was developing a success mindset that operated automatically. Today, David owns 2 successful businesses, has eliminated all his debt, and lives a life that would have been impossible to imagine when he was trapped in mental defeat. But David still does his morning mental workout every single day. He understands that mental strength, like physical strength, must be maintained through consistent exercise. David learned that your mind is your kingdom, and you must rule it or it will rule you. You are either the king of your thoughts or the slave of your thoughts. You are either directing your mental energy or being directed by your mental chaos. You are either programming your subconscious mind or allowing your subconscious mind to be programmed by whatever random influences happen to cross your path. The war in your mind will never end. But that doesn't mean you can't win it. Victory in the mental realm requires the same thing that victory in any other realm requires: daily training, consistent discipline, and relentless commitment to excellence. You don't become mentally strong by accident any more than you become physically strong by accident. Your mind is the most valuable real estate you will ever own. It's more important than your house, your car, your job, or your bank account, because everything else in your life flows from what happens in your mind. If you don't take control of your mental real estate, someone else will. If you don't program your mind will be programmed by your circumstances, your past, your fears, and other people's limitations. The battle for your mind is the battle for your life. Win this battle and you can win any battle. Lose this battle and it doesn't matter what other battles you win, because the war will already be over. Your mind is your kingdom. Rule it with wisdom, guard it with discipline, and program it with vision. The quality of your life will never exceed the quality of your thinking. Make your thoughts your servants, not your masters. Win the battle in your mind, and you'll win the war for your future. Wisdom equals fear. If you don't have wisdom, your future